Hello there, my dear. So I'm coming to you this week with I have not yet coined what these are. Maybe you will help me coin them. But it's basically where I read something to you from one of the many things in my library. And it may or may not be related to the message of the week, and I'll link to the main message here for you to check it out. The main channel message. As I usually say when I start these. The main purpose of me sharing these messages along with my channel messages is because I think it's important that you see me as human, um, and get a sense of my personality, get a sense of how I speak and what's my cadence when I'm not just channeling messages because it's a little different. And also to remind you, like, we're all multifaceted beings, and so you get access to different parts of people all the time. And so that's what I do. And this is part of my personality. I love reading for personal development reasons. I love reading for pleasure. And so I receive messages from the things I read. I also get guided towards things in my library to share with you based on the message that I channeled for that week. So that's what this message is all about. And today I was led to go way back in time. I wish I could remember the year that this book was purchased slash came from in my life, but it's gotta be like over 7, 8 years or something. This is much earlier in my healing journey when I was getting support through therapy and recovery spaces that I went to. And they often mention this author called Melody Beattie. And I was like, oh, who's that? I want to go check her out. And so I bought a couple of her books. Um, And today I was led to go back to these. These were like the very beginning of my journey of like creating like an actual morning routine, which is like not one that takes 500 hours. At that time it was like, can I get up and like read something and then begin my day intentionally and then move on? And even now, as I consider, I didn't always like read it and consider like the message for the entire day. It was like I just had a moment. Like I had breakfast and I had a book. And what I usually went to were these things called like daily readers. This one was one of my favorite that I did for so long, and it's called the Language of Letting Go Journal. But it's a meditation book and it's a journal for daily reflection. And throughout it, um, yeah, I actually journaled in this thing. I didn't remember. I thought I didn't journal. Um, but as you can see, there are different dates and times and all that stuff. So for every day in the year, you just like pull it and it gives you a message for that day, delineate it to the day of the calendar, right? And that's what I used to do. I used to have like, and then as I got more and more time, as I gave myself more time, in the morning, I would read more than one type of daily reader. So like there would be this one for the language of letting go, and then there was like a few years later, I got one for like women who work too much. And then of course there are the spiritual ones that they've been doing for a very long time, right? Um, this is my reminder to you that like it can be that simple. It can just be like, I'm gonna start something. I'm gonna start my day with something that gets my head in the right space. And it doesn't require forever for me to read it and make sense of it. That's why daily readers are there. It's like it just gives you a moment of respite and quiet to contemplate something. And what I loved about this one was that like there are actual pages. And they give you space at the bottom to write about the reflection. Um, and I think that's why I was called to this. I do a lot of mourning. I've done a bunch of different kind of mourning things. Um, and the reason I love the daily reader is because I'm like in the morning, I'm like very active in the brain. And sometimes the reader brings me back to like, right? So like what's the actual truth? What's the thing my heart's calling me to? And what I love about this one is that there was like a place for you to journal and be like, what does this bring up for me? So I thought today I would read the the short and brief reading for the date on which I am doing this video. Um, and today's date is January 15th. So I'm going to read that one. And then there's her book, Codependency No More: How to Stop Controlling Others and Start Caring for Yourself. Like, love this book. As you can see from all the highlighting, and I thought that I would just intuitively be led somewhere Because sometimes I just open a book and I like ask the divine to let me choose the best selection. And I would read from there and we would see where we go today. So that's where we're at. Here we go. So January 15th. And I always tell people, even if it's not that date and you're watching the video, like the message is for now. All right. Because sometimes I would skip a few days and then I'd read all three. I'd read through all three entries. And sometimes my heart needed more than one. So January 15th, standing up for ourselves. We learn some behaviors have self-defeating consequences, while others have beneficial consequences. We learn we have choices. That's a quote from her book, Beyond Codependency. It is so easy to come to the defense of others. How clear it is when others are being used, controlled, manipulated, or abused. It is so easy to fight their battles, become righteously indignant, rally to their aid, and spur them on to victory. You have rights, we tell them, and those rights are being violated. Stand up for yourself without guilt. Why is it so hard then for us to rally to our own behalf? Why can't we see when we are being used, victimized, lied to, manipulated, or otherwise violated? Why is it so difficult for us to stand up for ourselves? There are times in life when we can walk a gentle, loving path. There are times, however, when we need to stand up for ourselves, when walking the gentle, loving path puts us deeper into the hands of those who could mistreat us. Some days, a lesson we're to be learning and practicing is one of setting boundaries. Some days, a lesson we're learning is that of fighting for ourselves and our own rights. Sometimes a lesson won't stop until we do. So good. And they put an affirmation at the end of it. Today, I will rally to my own cause. I will remember that it is okay to stand up for myself when that action is appropriate. Help me, God, to let go of my need to be victimized. Help me appropriately and with confidence stand up for myself. Hmm. And I'm sitting here reading what I wrote. I'm like, oh. Sometimes when you like are given the message to give to others and the message is also for you, that message is also. I was, they're saying I can share this. Like I have had quite a moment. Um, if you check out the other messages connected to this at the moment at which I'm recording this, you'll notice I talk a lot about making choices and being in right relationship with people and different roles and identities that we hold and which ones we're stuck with and which ones we have to reimagine and show up differently with. And what I have been walking with recently is this idea that like I have difficulty with boundaries and yet I have been working on them for over a decade. In family and friendships. And when I read that, I was like, oh, because I think I had a moment this week where I'm like, wow, I still can't say no. And that what I journaled reminded me like, oh, I said no to someone else some other time. I've said no. Um, and it's they're like, it's a good reminder that like healing happens and you continue to learn how to say no. So I find it really hard to say no because um often what I say in recovery circles and what I tell people is like I have like three addictions and they go in this order. The first is like people, the second is work, and then food is the last one. And I never placed food as first because I think the other two impact the last one. And so that's why I find it really hard to say no. Um because of this work that I've done for a really long time on my codependency, and not my codependency, on codependency in my life and my connection to my family unit and my mother and all that stuff. And that's what like got me back, what got me into this certain place in my healing like 7, 8 years ago. Um, and that felt like the beginning, but it wasn't. I think that's like after I had already done a bunch of other things. Uh and that's just the beauty. Like I'm over a decade in my heart is just telling me to share with you like you can have been working on something or a particular facet of your identity, right? Because they're saying like remember our previous readings said like there were three identities that I'm calling out people to consider and how they're walking in those identities. And the first identity had to do with being a creator or creative. The second identity was being a guide, a leader, a teacher, wisdom keeper. And the last identity was in relation to other people in the family unit or friendship. And so, mother or daughter, husband, son, um, aunt, uncle, grandparent, right? Um, and they're just reminding you that, like, the path of you trying to reform, reimagine these different identities could be lifelong, and that gets to be okay too, because the point is that you have access to something the more work you do on it. Um, yeah. So, yeah, they're asking me to like oh, oh, ooh. I just got to this page. We'll see how long I read it for. It's kind of a long chapter. I'm gonna get a sense for how long um I read this for. And they're also saying they want me to pick a card at the end of the reading to help support us. So I just turned to a random page because I was like, oh, let's see what they have to share. Remember, this is called Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. And they had me turn to chapter 10, Live Your Own Life. Live and let live, 12-step program slogan. If I make one point in this book, I hope it is that the surest way to make ourselves crazy is to get involved in other people's business. And the quickest way to become sane and happy is to tend to our own affairs. I have discussed concepts and ideas pertaining to that thought. We've examined reactions typical of codependency. We've discussed ways of learning how to react differently using detachment. But after we've detached and taken our grip off the people around us, what's left? Each of us is left with ourselves. Mic drop. I remember the day I faced that truth. For a long time, I had blamed my unfortunate circumstances on other people. You are the reason I am the way I am, I had screeched. Look what you made me do with my minutes, my hours, my life. After I detached and took responsibility for myself, I wondered, maybe other people weren't the reason I hadn't been living my own life. Maybe they were just the excuse I needed. My destiny, my todays and tomorrows looked pretty glum. Living our lives may not be an exciting prospect to some of us either. Maybe we've been so wrapped up in other people that we've forgotten how to live and enjoy our lives. We may be in so much emotional distress we think we have no life. All we are is our pain. That's not true. We are more than our problems. We can be more than our problems. We will be more than our problems. Just because life has been this painful so far doesn't mean it has to keep hurting. Life doesn't have to hurt so much, and it won't if we begin to change. It may not be all roses from here on out, but it doesn't have to be all thorns either. We need to and can develop our own lives. As one friend says, get a life. Some codependents think a life with no future, no purpose, no great shakes, and no great breaks isn't worth living. That's not true either. I believe God has exciting, interesting things in store for each of us. I believe there is an enjoyable, worthwhile purpose besides taking care of people and being an appendage to someone for each of us. I believe we tap into this attitude by taking care of ourselves. We begin to cooperate. We open ourselves up to the goodness and richness available in us and to us. Throughout this book, I have used the phrase taking care of ourselves. I have heard that phrase used and abused. I've heard people use it to control, impose upon, or force their wills on people. I dropped in uninvited with my 5 kids and cat. We're going to spend the week. I'm just taking care of myself. I have the phrase used manipulatively to justify persecuting and punishing people instead of dealing appropriately with angry feelings. I'm going to holler and scream at you all day because you didn't do what I wanted you to do. Don't get mad at me, though. I'm just taking care of myself. I have heard people use these words to avoid responsibility. I know my son is up in his bedroom shooting heroin, but that's his problem. I'm not going to worry. I'm going to the store and charge $500, and I'm not going to worry about how I'll pay that either. I'm just taking care of myself. Those behaviors are not what I mean by taking care of ourselves. Self care is an attitude toward ourselves and our lives that says, I am responsible for myself. I am responsible for leading or not living my life. I am responsible for tending to my spiritual, emotional, physical, and financial well being. I am responsible for identifying and meeting my needs. I am responsible for solving my problems or learning to live with those I cannot solve. I am responsible for my choices. I am responsible for what I give and receive. I am also responsible for setting and achieving my goals. I am responsible for how much I enjoy life, for how much pleasure I find in daily activities. I am responsible for whom I love and how I choose to express this love. I am responsible for what I do to others and for what I allow others to do to me. I am responsible for my wants and desires. All of me, every aspect of my being is important. I count for something. I matter. My feelings can be trusted. My thinking is appropriate. I value my wants and needs. I do not deserve and will not tolerate abuse or constant mistreatment. I have rights, and it is my responsibility to assert these rights. The decisions I make and the way I conduct myself will reflect my high self esteem. My decisions will take into account my responsibility to myself. Mm. They tell me there's two more paragraphs and then we're going to be complete. My decisions will also take into account my responsibilities to other people, my spouse, my children, my relatives, my friends. I will examine and decide exactly what these responsibilities are as I make my decisions. I will also consider the rights of those around me, the right to live their lives as they see fit. I do not have the right to impose on others' rights to take care of themselves, and they have no right to impose on my rights. Self care is an attitude of mutual respect. It means learning to live our lives responsibly. It means allowing others to live their lives as they choose, as long as they don't interfere with our decisions to live as we choose. Taking care of ourselves is not as selfish as some people assume it is, but neither is it as selfless as many codependents believe. In the chapters that follow, we will discuss some specific ways of taking care of ourselves, goal setting, dealing with feelings, working a 12-step program, and more. I believe taking care of ourselves is an art, and this art involves one fundamental idea that is foreign to many: giving ourselves what we need. So good. I think I read that book like twice. Um, ooh, mm, yeah, I'm always like wondering why bring me there. Mm. I asked the divine that, and then I also am like, what does this mean? What do you want me to do? Da, 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 da. Do. And there's a part of me, like my intellectual side is saying, like, if you don't understand codependency, that's why the internet is there. I will not go into that. I am not a medical professional. Um, Nor do I have any real way to define it, besides that there's like very small uh differentiation between you and other people that you're in codependent relationships with. Um, but man, that took like my heart away. And the last sentence that I read about like what you need, I think is one of like the biggest messages um that we can consider as we evaluate the relationships that we're in, the roles that we hold in relationship to those people and to the things that we want to do in this world. I don't know, my heart is saying like there's a difference between a need and a want, and that feels very obvious to say. But I think sometimes in our world today, we can confuse them and think that like the want is the need, when what we're really being asked to do is like, how do we respond to the need of our hearts and to what our emotions require in that moment? And how do we meet that with like the greatest level of compassion and kindness that is available, even if that might not be something that we're used to receiving or doing. Hmm. Hmm. There's something in my heart. That's also calling me to talk about the idea of like what is like the point of the chapter is live your own life. Like what's left after you have more healthy relationships with those around you. Like even as you consider your role, it's connection to others. What's left is just you. And so are you very clear on you? Like are you like have you developed your own life? Like here like this get a life, right? Um and I laugh when I say that because I think they're asking me to share too that mm, the wind just crossed my space and I felt it there. Um They're asking me to share that often we make up our lives and the roles that we take on in this world in alignment with the ways of the world in the ways that we have seen it. But have you like asked yourself, like, have you decided to be fully responsible for yourself and your connection to these other people to consider like what needs to be different? What needs in you need to be fulfilled as you connect with others? And they're saying like there's more to life than what you have right now. It's like than what you've delineated as, right? They're like some of you think it's just like this one facet. If you get this facet right, like life will be that. But they're like, what if life is, they're like, what if life is as multifaceted as the people that you encounter online, right? The conversation I was having as I began the video, like you get to see me and my messiness and be like, oh my God, I love this. And this is how I consider and I think about this and la 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 la, right? Um, versus like when I channel, the message comes through and it just comes through, right? So like there are these different facets of my being, and they're like, what if there are different facets of your life and you're not accounting for all of them? And the way that they can all come together to create a larger picture for you, and a larger and greater life for you. Mm. And then they're saying they want me to say one more thing before I jump into picking a quick card out of my decks for you. There is a section here. Sorry, I got, yeah. There's this whole paragraph about like what you're responsible for. And I wonder, and they're wondering, like, how do you walk your life's path knowing you're responsible for how much you enjoy life and how much you find pleasure in your activities? Like, what if you knew that that was the point of walking your path? That, like, most of the time you should be doing that. You should be enjoying yourself because you make a choice. And that doesn't mean that, like, you get rid of all the things you don't enjoy. It means you look at the things that are required of you that you're responsible for, and you're like, oh, how could I enter into that with a different approach, a different perspective that then fills me in some really powerful way. Um, and they're like, they showed me this image of myself as like, I don't really love to do dishes. And when I have to do them, or like, I love cooking, but sometimes I'm just too tired. But I'm like, I need to cook. So what do I do? Like, I'm like, how do I make this joy filled? There are a couple ways that I do it. One, like, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like in the morning, I can like gather my wits about me and I will call in the divine and my ancestors. I'm like, let's do this together. Let me be mindful and do this. Like, that's gonna bring me joy in the morning on some mornings if I have a long morning, right? To do this thing that sometimes feels very tedious and something I do all the time, every time. Like I have to feed myself. It's one of the most annoying things to me. It's like, oh, it never ends. It never ends. Not because I have issues with food, but it's just a task that always has to happen that is kind of just routine that is like so boring after doing it for so long, right? I'm like, I'm in my 40s, so it's just like, oh, again, the thing, you know? Um, so I'm telling you, right? I can't get rid of it. I mean, I could if I wanted. I mean, I have dreams one day of getting of having a cook or having a special plan and like having meals delivered. Like that sounds wonderful. I'm not yet at that place. Um, and I don't mind cooking. Uh, it's just sometimes finding the motivation to do it so often is one of those things. So one of the things I do is like I connect with the divine. I'm like, let's do this together. Like this will help me feel connected. I can slow my thoughts down. I can do it meditatively. That doesn't always work for me. So that's why I said mornings, right? Because mornings are my thing. If they're slow and I'm not rushing anywhere, I'm like, oh yeah, let's do this. I want to make myself a nutritious and nourishing meal. And like sometimes I think about my grandmother and I'm like, oh, what would she put in here? What would she do? And I call it in, right? That's one way I do it. Sometimes by the end of the day, I'm like, I'm just gonna listen to a podcast for a minute, or sometimes I go on YouTube, right? Like I record channeling message for you. I love some of the channelers on YouTube. I'm like, I think there's a message for me. I feel it. I'm just gonna put somebody on for 30 minutes as I prep this meal. And then I can like be here and move through it. Because to me, the beginning is always the hard, just like the getting started, right? Um, they're also showing me like sometimes the cutting of things feels really meditative to me. And so sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm gonna cut this stuff. And then I'm gonna decide how to like just let the food sit there. And I'm gonna go do something for like 5 or 10 minutes. Play with the cat, do something, right? So they're just reminding you that as you imagine the responsibilities that you have, you can also approach those responsibilities with different levels of energy, different senses of motivation and inspiration, and then it might change, right? Um, and they're also wanting me to remind you that sometimes certain responsibilities feel a certain way because of the way that you're doing it, slash where you are, right, in your life. Because they're reminding me to tell you, like, I'm tired of cooking food, mainly because I was, for a very long time, I lived in very small spaces where I had very tiny kitchens. And I won't even talk about it. Um, but I'm just telling you, like, it felt like the most grueling and hard thing. And now years later, I'm like, oh, I have a better kitchen, but like I'm tired. Like it felt like a very hard fight for a while to like just be able to create a nutritious meal when I had very little space and I had very little tools because I lived, in a state where housing is a mess because I live near a city where the cost of living is pretty high, right? And so this is just to tell you, like, you get to walk that journey too of like this responsibility and when it feels light and when it feels heavy. And, because to me, it's like, oh, okay, they're like, even for me, my relationship with food has changed so much so that I am like looking forward to what's the next space I get to have and what is going to inspire me to cook. What is going to make it easy to cook and to prep food in advance? And that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, oh, if that responsibility is important to me because I want to do it a certain way and I want to enjoy it and I want to enjoy the process of it, I've realized like, then I need a space that meets that. Right. And they're saying like that's the beauty of the things that you choose to be in responsibility to when you decide to take care of yourself. And they're showing me these images of like you can try out a few different gyms, you can try out a few different yoga studios, you can try out different memberships that give you access to ways to care for yourself. You can try different spaces of healing from recovery to breath work to therapy, and you can continue on this path of oh, this is what it means to be in responsibility to myself. Does this fulfill a need? And if it does, then how do you find they're showing me like the right fit? And like showing me like one puzzle piece to connect it to another, right? Um, and that's the beauty of caring for yourself, even as you're trying to figure out this role and this identity, and its relationship to the people that you're here to help and to support, right? Because they're saying like even if you're creative, then and you're trying to figure out how to walk as a creative, then what are you responsible for as it relates to your craft? And what do you want to be holding yourself in responsibility to, right? And what's really important to you? Um, Ooh, thanks. You heard that. That was my partner. Um, and And it's funny that I sneezed in regards to that because that's one of the biggest roles that I have difficulty with is like, how do I prioritize creating in the way that matters to me? And what I always return to, what I want to be in responsibility to, is having a group of people that help me create, that help me show up to create regularly, because that helps me as I have a lot of hours doing a lot of other things in my life, right? And so to me, it always anchors me back. Plus, it's part of this like schooling thing of like, oh, I show up to write with other people. We talk about what we're right. Like it's always something that feels right. It's like part of my design. And they're showing you like, what do you want to be responsible to as it relates to your craft, right? And they're saying like that might be learning, that might be just showing up and doing it the way you want to. That might be actually like sharing your shit with other people. Like what is it you want to be responsible to? That's going to bring you joy, that's going to help you um claim that title for yourself. Uh yeah. All right. I imagine they want me to pull a card. I'm trying to figure out. So I was trying to get a sense of which card deck they wanted me to pull. Let me see. No. Okay. So I'm gonna pull a card because they say like we need a little nourishment for the heart. The heart. If you notice, the connecting videos with this week are all like, they're getting to the core of some stuff. Um, and so they just want to give you some nourishment via an oracle card message that you may want to hear at this moment. You may need to hear at this moment to support you. And I am pulling, let's say I'm gonna pull like two cards. Um, from Rebecca Campbell's Work Your Light Oracle card deck. Mm, 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 mm. Okay, so it says it's gonna come in nice and quick. We're gonna make it fast, and that's what we're gonna do. So, first card. Ooh, mm, get grounded. I saw her sitting there. I was like, it's time to get sensitive. Get sensitive. Hilarious. Get still is what I meant to say. Empaths, highly sensitives, connect with nature. And they're saying like there's something in nature that ha helps you not just get grounded, but return to yourself in a certain way. Um, and they're saying like if you're lost and figuring out like what do I need? Like go to nature. And they're saying most of you know, like there's a place that you go to, um, that you know. And they're saying like don't question it. Use that space to help you gather clarity. And they're showing me a bunch of spaces in which I frequented throughout my life. And they're like, sometimes you go to a place just because you need to grieve and you cry and that's it. And that's the clarity sometimes arrives because you just let yourself go and you let yourself release and then you move on. They're like, if that's the case for you, trust it. Some of you go to certain spaces to enjoy what the place has to give you in a sense of way of being because you love it and you admire that place. They're like, okay, go. Right? See what that place brings up in you. And then there's some places where you all go where you just sit there. And they're showing me like in a car, but sometimes you just go and you just sit on a bench and you're just there. So they're like, pick the place, just pick the place so that it can allow you to get the support that you need. Because sometimes we imagine, they're saying like sometimes you imagine what you need will like happen while you're at that place. And sometimes it doesn't happen till after that. Sometimes you have to go to the place. You have to be in the mess. And you'll be like, I don't know, right? And you have to like move through it. And maybe that's what the purpose of the space is, right? And then trust that the work you did there follows you and you'll get clarity. Sometimes the clarity will arrive while you're at that place, and sometimes it won't. Don't question it if it doesn't. But trust that it will arrive after. And set the intention. They're saying, like, set the intention that this is part of your process and this is what you're going to do. And that at the end, you'll receive it, whether it's after you come home, a day later, 2 days later. Like, sometimes we want things like immediately. And they're like, yeah, sometimes it doesn't work that way. Sometimes you need to like move through it. And they're like, for some of you, it's like, oh, you need to go get cuddles after moving through it at the place. Like, trust yourself and your own path to figuring out what you need and what you need to do. Second card, ooh, you're already doing it. Stop overthinking it. Keep facing your true north. And all I saw when I saw this card was like, oh, there's so many mountains. But like the beauty of the vision is that like she's already at the top of the mountain. And so that's why they're saying like they're just reminding you, like, this message just activates the knowing within you so that you can trust it and move forward. They're saying the last one is the gift. If you've been around, usually one of my last cards is always like the gift of what the moment is revealing to you, a gift just for you. Like it's just the last card for me is always just a gift. And then I let the card reveal what the gift is. They said they want me to read what's in the book from the gift card. Here we go. Oh, oh yeah. Trust your path. If you knew you would be supported, what would you do? Mm. If you need a little closer. Mm. Okay. Let's see what it says in the book. Because they're saying some of you need to hear this message and trust. And that's part of the trust process. It's like when you hear it, you're like, oh, darn, I knew that. And then you can be like, "Ugh, right. So now I'm going to go move forward as though I do know that. So trust your path. If you knew you would be supported, what would you do? The universe is conspiring. Keep facing your true north. Your job is not to pave the path, but to simply keep facing your true north and take one step after another. If you do this, you can't go wrong. The universe is conspiring. Don't waver or doubt. Use your heart as a compass and put one foot in front of the other. If you follow the invisible trail of what lights you up, you will light up the world without even trying. They want me to repeat that. If you follow the invisible trail of what lights you up, you will light up the world without even trying. They're also saying that if you follow the invisible trail of what it is to take care of yourself, it's invisible because you don't always know until you walk it. And there's like, if you walk that path to care for yourself, you're going to light the world up too. Like that's part of the message. Most people don't follow the highest call of their soul because they're waiting to see the end destination before they take the first step. If you take one baby step each day, within a year, you will have taken 365 steps in your dedicated direction. If you want to write a book, write a page every day. If you want to change careers, do one thing every day in dedication to that. Before you know it, in just a year from now, you will turn back and look in awe at how far you have journeyed. Keep moving and open yourself up to a whole new level of support and receiving. Things are not going to work out the way you are planning, but if you have a little faith and keep showing up, they will work out even better than you could possibly imagine. Don't micromanage the universe. Trust your path and let your soul lead the way. Work your light inquiry. If you knew you would be supported no matter what would you do? Mm, oh, yeah. This helps return us to my original message of how taking care of myself was simply like opening a daily reader, and just reading it for myself. And that then that compounded to what I have now created as a 2-hour morning practice. It's ridiculous. Sometimes I'm like, I want more. And then I open up the things that I have read and used in the past, and I'm like, wow, this like I am so far from where I was, where I felt like, oh my God, I don't even have 5 minutes. And honestly, sometimes I usually don't need 2 hours, but I like to have 2 hours like every other day. Because some days I don't do much of anything except 5 to 10 to 15 minutes. So it's just to show you like the morning routine or the act of caring for yourself compounds over time. And before you know it, you're like used to doing it for yourself and you're like, oh no, I need this, right? But in the beginning, it feels very foreign. And so they're asking you, like, what are you going to be in responsibility to as you consider what it means to take care of yourself? So that you can be in right relationship with these different roles that you want to explore between being a creative, being a guide, a teacher, being someone in your family who's a parent, a child, a grandparent, a sibling, right? Like What is it that's going to allow you to show up in integrity to yourself? And those are the things that you also have to be responsible for. And they just keep saying, like, it gathers momentum after time. So that when you look back, you're like, OMG, yo, right? And I know here it says, like, do something every single day. And the only thing I could manage in the beginning was like literally like, I'm just gonna read this. Like, I'm just gonna read this. I'm gonna read this for 10 minutes and like I gotta go. Like I gotta go. Right. Then eventually it was like I looked at like what I could do daily. They're like, think about what you could do daily, think about what you could do monthly, think about what you daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. Because initially mine just began like, can I do something every day? And then I was like, what can I do every week? And they're like, remind them it doesn't have to be complicated. They're like, remember for you every week was just like get out of the house and walk by yourself for like 30, 45 minutes and get lost on a walk wherever you lived. And like that was your caring for every week. Eventually, at some point, caring every week was like get a massage. Actually, every month was like get a massage every month. And then eventually it was like, oh, what do I do every quarter? What do I do every year? Those are the ones that I'm still trying to figure out. Um, because sometimes I want to do real big things for those times. I'm like, yeah, but it's just taking care of myself, right? So it's just a reminder to you. It has to start small and it just has to have a rhythm, right? Because they're saying hesitate to say consistency because everybody talks about consistency. Um, and I'll be honest, some days I didn't get to reading my thing at the beginning of the day. And there would be days that would pass by and I'd be like, oh, right. But they're also saying I didn't do it because I had other things. And then they're also reminding you, like, what are the other supports that you have that include taking care of yourself? Right. So I may not have read stuff, but I went to therapy, I went to meetings, I had family, I had friends, right? And so that's your work is to know like the one thing you do may not be the most consistent thing in the world, but that what has to be consistent is whatever you do to care for yourself, whatever that includes. You might not do the same exact thing all the time, and that's okay. And I feel like that's impossible for women who have different batches of energy all freaking month long anyway, right? So be kind to yourself because I say the more that you agree to show up and just do something regularly, the more you keep the promise to yourself, and then the more you can do it, the more you will show up to do it, right? Um, and they're like, that's the thing that gets difficult when you commit to something that's unrealistic and then you beat yourself up about it. It's like they're like, why create these greater standards of stuff to then only feel bad about it later? They're like, make it small so that you can meet it and then be like, oh, if I did that much, maybe I could do this. Oh, if I did that, maybe I could do this, right? Like going on my walk every week, uh, you know. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, oh yeah, I can walk every day. Um, and they're just reminding me to tell you about that experience I had because we have to start somewhere. And sometimes starting at the place that requires the most from us is like setting ourselves up for failure. And why would you do that to yourself? You're freaking amazing. And if you're here, you're watching this video, that means you've already done some healing. Like most of the people that I am attracting and calling into this channel are people who like know what it is to be on a personal development journey. And the last thing you should do is set yourself up not to succeed in the best way possible, right? So for me, sometimes it's like, oh, did I make two dinner meals that lasted four dinners this week? I'm like, that's a win. We're gonna get to like six at some point, right? Like, because for me, it's like, can I do one? You know? Because I used to do it a lot more before. I'm like, I can do it again, right? Because I had other issues. I had issues with my arm and then stress of commuting and all this stuff. So everything is like, they're reminding me to tell you to like, there are multifaceted aspects of your life that are impacting the thing that you want to commit to. And that has to be accounted for as a way of you providing compassion and grace for yourself so you can show up to do it in the way that you desire to do it. And so I love cooking. I love baking, but my house is not set up for it. And then I have like physical issues that actually kept me from being able to chop things and do these things. And I'm like, oh, okay, so there's a reason I stopped, right? So I think a lot of times we're very quick to be like, we failed, we didn't do that. Well, what led to that? Why wasn't I able? They're like, be curious, get curious rather than judgmental, rather than being critical. You're like, why weren't you able to do that? And then I was like, oh, I wasn't able to do it because I like couldn't even sleep with my arm at night. I had to figure out what was going on. And then I tried to cook and I was like, oh my God, I can't even cook because like holding something down is still reverberating pain all the way at my arm. Sometimes we're not very conscious of the obstacles that are before us. We just think we still need to perform. We still need to do this, no matter what it is. And they're reminding you they're reminding me to remind you that that's like the power of my story too, is to show you that there are things there and it's your job to get conscious about it and then adequately account for them, right? So even now I'm like, oh, I want to go on a lot more walks, but it's like winter and it's freezing outside and I'm tired and I have an issue with my knee. And so I'm like, why don't I want to go for more walks? And I'm like, well, because I have to like I, I have issues with my knee right now. Like it hurts when I only walk like a quarter of a mile. Like mayhaps that's like a trigger to my brain that's already telling me don't do it. Right. And it's like, oh right, I have to take care of myself if I want to do the thing I really love. And so they're just reminding you to like just get conscious and become aware of what is it that doesn't allow you to meet the standard that you set for yourself. Right. Because even me, like they're showing me my planner. It's like, oh, I created a to-do list and I'm gonna get it all done. I'm like, but did I look at my day and consider like, oh my God, I have like 4 meetings today. Like, am I working on this in these meetings? Because if I'm not, then that to-do list ain't getting done, sweetheart. Right? Because I'm sitting in meetings, I'm doing other things. Right? And so this is just a reminder to you, like, are you accounting for the very true realities and circumstances of your life before you commit to the ways that you want to care for yourself? Because if I want to get the stuff done on my list, then I got to cancel some meetings. Or saying like cancel, say no, account for yourself, and get to work. Right? All right, that's the message for today. That's all I got. I hope the books were supportive. I hope the oral card reading was supportive. Let me know in the comments what came up for you. If you have any questions about what I shared, anything that's on your heart, your mind, your soul, your spirit is asking to be witnessed, acknowledged, all that good stuff. And if you want support with caring for yourself and prioritizing that time for yourself and figuring out how to do that, like that's what I do with people. And I love it. And so if you would like support for 90 days of your life so that you feel like you're being held as you navigate what it means to make these choices, to be in integrity, to the responsibility to yourself and to others, check out my link in the comments below. And if not, then I trust you got this, yo. And let me know in the comments how you got it, because I still want to cheer you on. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.